Hey. Hello, welcome. Thank you so much for sticking around. I'm a little late getting this episode up. I told myself, and I even tweeted that I was going to have another episode up before the end of the year, which I failed to do because I decided to celebrate New Year's Eve with my wife and a few friends. Got out of the house. That was nice. I hope you had a good one. Happy holidays. I've been, it's funny. It's been in the back of my head to get a podcast. I've got to get a podcast up. Not like there's any outside pressure at all. Like there's somebody else making me do this, or like I have an actual deadline to meet. It's just something for myself that I want to accomplish and keep coming on a regular basis. Sometimes writing a song can take a long time, or getting it recorded properly, or finishing writing it from demo to final product. So it's really nice to have something like a podcast that doesn't have to be perfect, and you don't have to worry about editing it too much, hopefully. And just getting it up there, getting it out. This episode is a solo cast. That means you're only going to hear this voice, maybe a few different ones, because I might throw in some sound clips. I think I'm going to throw in maybe a few beats. As you know, the intro music to this show that you've maybe heard on one of the other 5 episodes is kind of a little beatbox medley thing. And I have this loop pedal that I got. I was inspired by watching Reggie Watts, amazing musical comedian, just genius, creative force, and hilarious guy. Excuse me. Just watching him with a loop pedal and beatboxing songs on the fly, it was super inspiring, and I thought I can do that because I get it. I just don't have the developed beatbox voice, but I'm getting there. I'm figuring it out. I've been playing a lot with it. I make beats with my kids, and I think I'm gonna interweave a few of those beats throughout this episode. Sometimes I have fake commercials at the start of episodes or at the end of episodes. I don't have a real sponsor. I don't plan to have real sponsors, but I always like the idea of making fun of commercials. So I plan to continue doing that. And I don't know if I don't think I'm going to get one up on this episode. I'll slide in a few little beats, slices to put a little some creative frosting on the episode, just to keep it sweet. Okay, moving right along. But since this is a solo cast, I do not have any guests in this my little home podcast studio here. I will introduce myself, as I have not yet in the last 5 episodes. I'm Christian. I hate just summing, people sum themselves up. I'm a painter. I'm a dog groomer. I don't want to identify with my career, but that's the first thing that comes to mind. I'm an audio guy. I'm a sound guy. I mix audio, record audio, produce audio, musician. But these are the things I do. They all center around audio and music. And I'm blessed to be in this situation I'm in, and to have this facility known as Sun Temple Studios that I work out of, mixing and producing music. So it was simple for me to start up a podcast, technically, because I have all the stuff. And then there's the talking side of it, interviewing. I'm not an interviewer by any means, but I'm genuinely interested in people, and I think I'm a pretty good listener. And I certainly have some questions, and if other people find those questions interesting, then we're on the same page, and that's cool because you'll get something out of it. So that's my intention, is just to follow what intrigues me and interests me and talk to people that I'd like to talk to and share those conversations with anyone who finds them interesting. All right, to start this off, I want to show you a sweet little beat that I made with my daughter. This was made with Summer. She's 5 years old, and we whipped this up in like 5 minutes, and she came up with the rhythms on her own. It blows my mind because she comes up with these varied rhythms where she can, syncopate, and she just gets it. Anyway, check this out. This is a dope beat that I made with Summer.
Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time. Yeah, we like to do things all the time.
We like to do things all the time. All right, I want to start on some of the information that's just been keeps coming at me from different angles, and I find it fascinating. And I don't know if everybody knows about this stuff already, or maybe it's just me in certain circles and podcasts you listen to and things you follow. But I'm just parroting, repeating a lot of this information. But I'm sure there's people out there who haven't heard it. Number one, Edward Bernays. Have you heard of Edward Bernays? He was born in Vienna in 1891. He died in 1995. He lived to be 103, this guy. Edward Bernays, he's known as a pioneer in public relations, public opinion, and propaganda. He's like the grandfather of propaganda. Oh yeah, he happens to be Sigmund Freud's nephew. So, how's that? The father of modern psychology is the uncle of the father of public opinion and propaganda. And this guy fascinates me to no end because I'm always interested in just kind of looking behind the scenes, behind the covers, and so much of this stuff, it's easy to discredit, tinfoil hat, people looking for things wrong in the system. But this guy is just a perfect example of documented, what people define conspiracies as is like everything that this guy has done and has admitted to doing and, talks about in interviews and in his books. He wrote a book called Crystallizing Public Opinion in 1923. One of his most famous books is Propaganda, where he coins the term engineering consent. And you can imagine what that means. He believed in an intelligent minority who must rule the people. The masses they can't get along themselves. So we're doing this for their good, but we need to sway them. And it was becoming more obvious that brute force could not control the people. You can't control millions of people with force. So you need to kind of get them on the same page and get them wanting the things that you want them to want. And this is no conspiracy. It would have been at the time, because it was, of course, things drafted behind closed doors. And he comes up with these business plans, hired by giant corporations and eventually governments to sway public opinion and to have people view things in a way that's favorable to the government or corporation who was hiring Mr. Bernays. One famous thing Edward Bernays did was he was hired by a tobacco company to sell more cigarettes. There weren't enough women smokers, and this was half the population that they could be selling cigarettes to who weren't buying cigarettes. So this is a problem for these companies who want to make some bottom line here. So Mr. Bernays hired a handful of young women with cigarettes hidden under their garments, and hired them. This was during women's rights movements, I believe, in the 30s, 20s, 30s, when women couldn't vote yet. I believe this was just when women were fired up and really, really ready to turn the tide on women's rights and get the right to vote. And anyway, he hired this group of women, injected them into a parade, and gave them a signal. And upon the signal, they were to pull out the cigarettes and light up. And he had the phrase "torches of freedom." He had written beforehand for them to use this phrase. So these women would light up their cigarettes and refer to them as torches of freedom, while inspiring this liberating feeling in women around, seeing them light up. So Edward Bernays is responsible for making cigarettes socially acceptable for women, and eventually a symbol of power and freedom and liberation for a woman to be smoking. Another thing Mr. Bernays is famous for was for making bacon and eggs a standard breakfast. This was not a common breakfast meal or combo before the 20s or whenever he kind of pushed this on America. I believe it was a pork company that was pushing, they wanted to sell more bacon. They wanted to sell more pork. And, when you look at it, the idea of bacon and eggs, protein and protein, a bunch of fat and protein in the morning, it really doesn't make sense to add more protein to that. But Mr. Bernays helped cook up a campaign to make bacon and eggs look like, the working man's breakfast. This is America's breakfast meal. In 1917, Edward Bernays and Walter Lippmann were hired by Woodrow Wilson, President of the United States, to help influence public opinion to make America want to enter World War I, to make people more comfortable with that, as he was known for having the opposite stance, but eventually had to push the other way. The term Banana Republic originated in reference to United Fruit Company's domination of Guatemala, which was spearheaded by a campaign leveraged by Edward Bernays. Bernays was also famous for getting the Dixie cups in every office building in America, convincing the public that reusable cups were filthy and that we were going to spread diseases if we were using these. We have to get these little sterile disposable cups that we can throw away, that we're going to need to replenish over and over and over. And last, but definitely not least, Edward Bernays is more than partially responsible for fluoride being added to your tap water. Your drinking water contains fluoride because of Edward Bernays. Especially if you live in North America. Edward Bernays was the public relations advisor to the Aluminum Company of America. Now, the Aluminum Company of America had a problem in that they had a lot of sodium fluoride, which was a byproduct of manufacturing aluminum. And sodium fluoride's not easy to dispose of. You can't just dump it anywhere. But Edward Bernays, being the brilliant, evil genius that he was, found a way to have the cake and eat it too, in the form of selling this sodium fluoride to governments once they were convinced that it was a healthy move for their population, that this would help dental. This would make people's teeth stronger and prevent cavities, just to add a little bit of sodium fluoride to all of the water. So let's just spread it out through all of the drinking water. And of course, anyone who looks at this idea objectively can see how ridiculous it is. Is there anybody who's not lacking vitamin D in North America? Put up your hand. Or in Canada, rather, especially at this time of year. We would never add vitamin D to the water. We would not add vitamins to our drinking water. We wouldn't add vitamin C to our drinking water, even though it's totally harmless. You really couldn't die from too much. It would take you a ridiculous amount of vitamin C to kill you. The first symptom, if you take too much vitamin C, is you start to get the runs. So that'll tell you pretty quick that you're overdosing on vitamin C. My point being that we would never add vitamin C or D to the water, something not dangerous, but sodium fluoride, something that is lethal. It's a neurotoxin. It's poison. And we add it to the water, but in these small amounts. So it's just enough to be good for our teeth. And when I first heard about sodium fluoride being added to the water, fluoridation, when I first started to question this stuff, I don't know, in my early 20s, like at first you just think, yeah, there's fluoride in the water. We eat these little tablets. I remember when we were kids, we chewed up those little pink tablets, fluoride tablets, to make our teeth stronger. And when I first started to question this stuff, I looked into it, and all the information I could find, it seemed to be only topical application, which is applying fluoride straight to your teeth, like how the dentists put it in that gel in those little trays and then leave it on your teeth for 5 or 10 minutes and then pull it and rinse it off. It seems that was the only application that had any substantial positive effects. If you put it topically on your teeth, it can help strengthen them. If you swallow it, it goes into your gut, and then where does it go? Well, it turns out it ends up in in soft tissue organs, most prominently. Pineal gland is one place I've heard that it can calcify. And anyway, the last place it doesn't go straight to your teeth once you swallow it into your body. In a perfect world, I guess all the sodium fluoride would go to our teeth, and we would have tiger teeth, and we would never have cracked, broken teeth. Anyway, sodium fluoride, like adding fluoride to your water to make your teeth stronger, is like, I don't know, it's like adding blended beef to your water to give us more protein. No, that would make more sense because we would actually be ingesting the protein, and that's how we process protein. But sodium fluoride being added to our water for dental reasons, not even just for, it's for a specific type of health. It's like adding something to your drinking water for your fingernails, or it makes your hair shinier. We're going to add a little bit of silicone to your water because your hair is going to be a little bit shinier. So to me, it's akin to that. I think it's ridiculous. When you pay for drinking water, it should be the purest, freshest water you can have, and then you can add whatever you want to it after that. You can add those little flavor drops or a wedge of lemon or a capsule full of sodium fluoride, whatever floats your boat. But when it comes out of the tap, it should be as pure as it can be. And so Saskatoon has traditionally had fluoridated drinking water. I just found out about a month ago that there was a silent removal of fluoride from Saskatoon's drinking water supply. I was told this by a dentist, and I had no idea. And I thought, how funny, because I've always questioned that and thought it was stupid that we add fluoride to our water for our teeth. And then here the dentist is telling me that there was a silent removal of fluoride from our drinking water, which means they took it out silently. We stopped putting fluoride in the water, and we didn't talk about it. I'm sure there were all kinds of criticisms about it from people that were more vocal than I and wrote letters to the city and to the water treatment plant and whatnot. But anyway, whatever happened, I'll have to look a little bit more into that, a little closer at that. But I encourage you to look into it and find out, why did Saskatoon silently remove fluoride from the water? I don't know. Good question. Why aren't we talking about it? Is there something, do we not want to admit we were wrong somewhere? Or was it just not important enough to talk about? We're like, 70% water? It's something that we consume every day. I don't know. Big deal? You be the judge. Anyway, Edward Bernays was responsible for helping the aluminum industry get rid of their byproduct of sodium fluoride into the tap water across the Americas. Okay, enough about Edward Bernays. I don't know a lot more when it comes to details about the fella. I know there are documentaries out there. There's other breakdowns of him on YouTube and stuff. I haven't dug that deep, but this is just the surface. And it's just an example of how there are people behind the scenes being paid very generously to sway public opinion. Like this guy, he would use emotions to sell product rather than intellect. He understood that appealing to your intellect would not convince you to buy something you didn't need. It had to appeal to your emotions. It had to make you feel sexy, or make you feel desirable, or make you feel stronger or safer. So he knew how to attach things to emotion, to human emotion. He knew to play off of our monkey brains, our reptile brain, and kind of go straight for the underbelly, the stuff that's built in, our instinct. It's there, Fear gets a certain response from people, and happiness and joy, acceptance gets a certain response from people. And he knew how to use that to sell products and to change how people perceived. All right, enough about Eddie Bernays. And now for another beat I made with my other daughter, Suri, who's 8. And we whipped up this little mama jamma. Which beat are we going to play here? Let's play this one. my kids get pumped most for these kind of beats when we're just sitting around and we make a song about what's happening right now. And this song is about a delicious spaghetti meal my wife made. Yeah, I love that sauce. 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 And one more thing health-wise that I wanted to parrot that I keep hearing about is, and it's akin to the having a healthy gut biome. It's the cultures, the communities that live within us and keeping them happy and healthy because they do all the work inside of us. They are breaking down the food and releasing the energy and vitamins and nutrients from that food that we're processing and utilizing in the day. So you can't just treat these things like shitty, beef cows in a lot and feed them garbage and don't let them move so they get fat and we can feed off them more. No, these guys are working for us. These are our workers. So it's our inner staff, and we're trying to keep them happy so they work efficiently and we feel good on the inside and the outside. So this goes along with that. It's the idea of babies being born by C-section, cesarean section. When the baby's not born vaginally, they do not get the mother's vaginal fluids on their face and in their mouth. And what's important about this is that they are starting their gut flora. Their colonies are just being established when they're first born. They don't have this yet, I believe, from what I understand. I guess because when the baby's being fed in utero, they're fed through their belly button, so maybe it just goes straight into their organs and their blood flow rather than going through their GI, their gastrointestinal system. So now when the babies are being born, they need to establish this gut flora. They need to establish communities in there because they're going to start ingesting food, first milk, and then their gut needs to know how to break that down. So they need to get this rocking in there. They need to start the compost up, fire up the heap. So apparently it is important for a baby to get the mother's vaginal fluids in their mouth and eventually into their gut so they can start a healthy bacterial colony. And what happens if they don't get this is they get it from somewhere. So eventually outside bacteria is going to get into this baby. And if they don't already have a standing army of healthy bacteria, whatever crap gets in there is going to take the top of the hill and kind of start them off. And I just have to wonder how much this has to do with those babies in their early childhood that are really sickly. And I've heard this is linked to all kinds of allergies and kids being susceptible to certain problems or infections. Could have a great deal to do with just not having an established healthy bacteria and flora in their body. So, and related to this, another thing that I've been hearing about are fecal transplants. Now, if you've never heard of a fecal transplant, it's exactly what you think it is. You take poop from somebody's butt, a healthy person, and you inject the poop into an unhealthy person's butt. Now, the poop from the healthy person is going to have a balanced and healthy flora. It's like, people talk about eating yogurt to put good bacterial culture in your gut, especially after you've taken a lot of antibiotics. So you're taking poop from a healthy person's colon and injecting it into an unhealthy person's colon, just like eating yogurt for the probiotics and reestablishing healthy bacterial culture in your gut. This is for people's colons, for people who have out of control weight problems, can apparently really, really benefit from this, from just establishing a healthy community in their colon. and then that has a chance to spread and put you on the right path from the inside out. It's wild, but it makes a lot of sense, and it's out there, it's happening, it's taboo, but it's very real. So look it up. Fecal transplants. Get yours. I know where you can get some shit. Apparently they're pretty stringent with it, in the medical world. If they're doing real fecal transplants, they're going to be testing people for different diseases and pathogens and making sure they don't have parasites and things going on inside them before they take this quote-unquote healthy shit and inject it into the unhealthy person's ass, thereby giving them a dose of healthy bacterial shit culture to flourish and build communities like the aid sent from United Nations into Africa to help drill for wells for clean water. These little shit cultures are gonna do their thing. If this catches on, Big Pharma, we'll see you later. We've all got shit. We don't need to buy your crap. We've got crap of our own. So that's it. These are just my opinions. This is stuff that I ponder, that's been on my mind the last couple of weeks. Thinking about how the body works from the inside out, trying to zoom out, get that big point of view. Edward Bernays, public opinion, conspiracies are real if they happened. The word carries so much weight. Like the word propaganda wasn't seen as a bad word in 1928 when Edward Bernays put out the book. Propaganda was just the word for getting people on board. It was kind of just like advertising, but it's picked up this connotation where people see it as a deceptive form of advertising, which all advertising is. Watch advertising. What is the point of advertising? It is to convince you to make a decision, right? They don't just feed you the information. They like Edward Bernays, are selling the product to your emotions. They want to pull an emotional reaction out of you. There's a beautiful woman in the ad that makes you feel a certain way, or there's a child and a dad hugging. You see that connection. You see that. It's family. It's safe. They sell products like this. You look at any cleaner, Tide or dishwasher detergent, these kind of commercials, and it's always home and it's clean and it's fresh and it's safe. And the advertising industry understands that they need to manipulate, not that they need to, but it is very effective to manipulate and attach their product to a feeling rather than just try to convince you by its description and the specifications of their products. So this is important to note, that there are forces out there constantly trying to deceive you and fight for your attention. And I once heard somebody say that attention is the most beautiful thing that you can give anybody. It's the most precious thing that you can give somebody is your attention. And I feel like today more than ever that is true. That holds true. In this day and age, there's a lot of different factions, a lot of different types of media pulling at your attention. And because if you look in their direction, you might spend some money, or you add to their clout and power, and follower count and whatnot. And it's not all bad, but it's not all good. It can be all good, but you just have to be honest with yourself. You have to get real and see that there are forces for the light, there are forces for the dark. Where do you fit in? Are you just going to chase the biggest offer that comes at you? Or do you have values? Is there something that's more important for you than than just the money and the numbers. I don't know. Reflect. Hit me up, conjecturetime@gmail.com. And please, if I'm wrong anywhere, correct me if I'm wrong. Questions, comments, articles to share, hit me up. conjecturetime@gmail.com. conjecturetime.com is the show blog site where you can reblog and see photos of the guests and stuff. I throw up a photo each week with the guests. I GIMP it up there. And GIMP is my open source Photoshop because I don't have Photoshop. So you'll see I've GIMPed up a few pictures of past guests. And thanks for joining. I will be back soon. Next couple weeks we will have a music reviewer / writer. We will have a music producer / recordist mixer. Some great guys. I can't wait to sit down in the studio and chat with them and eventually share with you. Until next time, I don't have a catchphrase yet. Thanks.